Today I brought in Bradley Moore, who is one of my former students and absolute killer at Outbound. Currently, he is the head and lead SDR at leader.co, formerly known as Thought Leader, formerly known as the Idea Collective. I think it's changed names two or three times at this point, but basically, the company he works for helps people get onto TEDx talks and get into public speaking and or just build their coaching business. So some of them want to start with speaking, some of them want to start with coaching. Um, but I met Bradley. When did we meet? Like back in 2019, 2020, 21, 2021 probably.
November 19th, 2021 was our enrollment call.
Oh shit. Yeah. I was working on Thought Leader at the time as a closer, and he was actually a prospect. And maybe you want to tell a little bit about where you were at that point and what was going on for you and why you were on that call.
Yeah, it was a really pivotal point in my journey. I had recently left the corporate world, doing some UPS work, basically playing with Excel all day, doing the same reports, and just wasn't fulfilled. And I saw, I think at 2 a.m., an ad for thought leader, and I booked a call, and Mason was on the other end. And I think for me, it was really just a massive opportunity for growth. I remember coming away from that energetically, like not even really knowing, like, yeah, I give a TEDx talk, but I didn't really have expectations. I just knew whatever the energy that I got from Mason, like I wanted more of that. It felt really inspiring and like that you get really nervous, but you're like, this is actually excitement.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I left that call with a ton of that. And like you were talking about, just took a bunch of action and knew that at the end of the day, the growth was going to be worth it.
Yeah. It was really cool to watch him navigate his own. I'm gonna let Josiah in as well. What was really cool was getting to see him navigate. Let me get Josiah in, and then Josiah, you there, dude? What's up, man? Just to get you up to speed, we just brought in Bradley Moore, who's the top SDR at leader.co. They're doing 2 mil a month over there, absolutely crushing, and former student. So just kind of going through his journey of how he got into remote sales, where he's at now, what he's learned, and some of the key frameworks when it comes to outbound today. But what we were just going over is I actually enrolled him into that program because I was a closer in that program. I also enrolled Josiah into a program with NEPQ. So it's cool to have prospects who are now friends. I love seeing the full circle piece there. But Bradley got into the program and he went ham, like hard AF in terms of like applying to TEDx, applying to get a stage. And then he was a perfect example of what it means to do the job before you get the job. So like last week, I think I had someone ask like, how could I stand out as a setter? And I jokingly said like, go set the appointments. And then guess what? If you set the appointments and you're actually doing the job before the job, you're going to get it. And what Bradley did is not only was he a star student in that community, he started being a community manager prior to there being a community manager. He was answering questions, he was helping people, he was coaching people through the process. And so I remember being on the closing team and seeing this go on, and I was like, yo, you guys, we have someone who's doing a job, but he's not being paid. Can we like at least pay him something? Because this guy is actually doing the whole community manager role and he's pumping up the community and he's like the number one super fan of this offer. I've never seen someone more stoked and more enthusiastic than this guy. And I remember hitting up Taylor Conroy and the team as well and kind of like vouching for Bradley. I was like, yo, we need to hire that dude. And so I guess maybe if you could tell him what happened, you got hired. You started off not in sales, right?
Yes, so I started off as what do we used to call it? Account manager, which now is success advisor, but essentially just coaching people through the journey. And me being a student and having gone through the program, it just kind of came naturally. And it was, yeah, that's where I started was just getting on calls with people and telling them to do their work, do their applications, write their talk, and just kind of doing what Mason did for me, like calling people up into the actual purpose, the reason they were with us. And so that was a really fulfilling position.
Yeah. How long did you do that?
I did that for about a year and a half.
Okay. And so what was the turning point when you decided you wanted to go into sales? Because I think that might have been as I was leaving that you got into it or right after. I don't remember the exact timeline of when you got in and when I left Thought Leader, but what caused you to decide to make the switch?
So it was actually pretty random. I think it was energetically the right move, but you remember Kale. I came to
Yes.
find out later, Kale was continuously advocating for me to jump on the SDR team or something on their role, which I didn't know. And so one day I just got a DM in our Slack, and it was actually Taylor, our founder, and he's like, "Hey, you ever thought about coming over to sales? I think you'd be awesome." And
Mm,
then I was at the point where um, I was kind of not so good at the role, but just knew the ins and outs of the success advisor position so much that it was starting to become repetitive, kind of like the UPS feeling, right?
mm,
Wasn't growing. And so
yeah.
I just was like, cool, let's do it. And the
And
rest is
now
history.
and now you went for it. And that's really cool because one thing I remember from your story is like you're basically in UPS, absolutely hated that role. And you're also kind of, I don't want to say an identity crisis, but really figuring out who you are. And we're always continuing to figure out who we are. And that's something that's like
Mm-hmm.
ever evolving, but that was especially present when we connected originally. Do you mind if I share the Mustang story?
Dude, let him have it.
Okay. So I remember on our enrollment call, which was like really vivid, him discussing like the power of ego and just like how it, kind of like the ego is not your amigo, if I had to paraphrase, because he got the role at UPS, not making good money, maybe like 40K a year or something. And uh, first move any young man decides to do, and it's just like Taylor Conroy did the same thing, is buy a fucking car that's well beyond your means. For Taylor Conroy, that was a Jeep. For Bradley, that was a badass Mustang. And he thought, okay, I got the Mustang now. The girls are gonna like me. People are gonna think I'm cool. Oh yeah, I did the thing. And he pulled up to like a red light, looked over at some girls, drop top convertible, and they just started laughing at him. And it was just like really humbling moment that I'll never forget because it's like who you are speaks so much louder than what you show, right? The way that we actually operate is the truth. And that was like such a good mirror. And I feel like who you've stepped into now versus who you were then, that's a version of you that was maybe looking for external validation and had values that were
Mm-hmm.
seeking external. Whereas now I firmly believe that you're in a place that's much more grounded, consistent, stable, um, and that you're getting more success and more fulfillment from within. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly right. And that's exactly why they laughed at me, right? And whether they laughed because they thought I was handsome and they like
You have no
wanted
idea actually, but the meaning we
exactly.
made about it back then was,
It was a really poignant reminder, and like that's when I finally like accepted the fact that no matter what I achieved externally, what car I was in, if I didn't feel fulfillment, if I didn't feel growth, like who knows what they were thinking,
no
right? They could
idea.
have wanted to be my wives, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
The most extreme scenario, but for me, I took it in the way that I internally like looked at myself and the beliefs that I had about myself. And I knew in that moment I bought that Mustang and I had about $20 a week after I paid for everything, with the massive insurance, all the bills that come with that, right? I knew that I was doing that for their validation.
Mm,
So it was like a beautiful mirror for me to see, like, oh, no matter what I do externally, it's not going to create the fulfillment that I want.
yeah. Yeah. And so it's been great to see off the back end of that, you not only stepping into the first role, really putting full force into it, to say the least, getting into the second role. And really, the purpose of today's training is one, to share his story, how far he's come, because he went from, UPS to doing 10K months plus as a top like lead SDR on this role. And he's been consistent. Like one of the biggest things that's in remote sales is people offer hop every few months. They never have consistency, they never have stability. Bradley has actually stuck it out and he's had that and he's been consistent. How long have you been at that company for?
It'll be about 5 years, 2 months now.
Wow. Yeah. So like I think stability is underrated in the high ticket space and a lot of people are looking for moonshots but can't think long term. So maybe the money is like easy come, they get like something, but then it's also easy go. And depending on how you're wired, maybe you like that. But for a lot of people, I think that are attracted to this community, like actually having consistency, predictability, and peace is even more important than
Mhm.
hitting some 30, 40K a month once and then having a blowout and wondering like an existential crisis every 4 months because the offer breaks. So, I'm proud of you for having that dedication to stick through it long term. I'd love to dive into um, a little bit of the framework that you brought today. So Bradley has a framework that he's put together that's really allowed him to thrive within the outbound aspect. So I think this will be relevant for Ian, for Marcus, Josiah, especially. Marcus is hunting for a role. Josiah is on one, possibly interviewing with seventh level. Ian's one of my reps over at Lead Gen J. Um, really just want to hear from you. If you're, I'll let you share screen and we could go into your framework that you have on outbound sales and then any kind of Q&A from the guys as we go. Feel free to kind of raise your hand and then Bradley, if you want to answer questions, you can. If you want to wait till the end, that's totally cool too.
Yeah, let's do it. Feel free. I will need sharing permissions, but yeah, if you guys have questions, jump in, raise your hand, whatever you want to do. I would
Yeah,
love to
I
go
think
back and forth.
I think if you hit the green arrow, I should be able to let you. So it just gave you permission. And even
Perfect.
before
There
we
we go.
dive in, any initial questions about Bradley's story or anything that you guys want to know just before we do dive into the training here?
Don't be shy.
Yeah, yeah, I was just curious about like you, Mason was explaining, and I kind of came in like a little bit late, but how you were like contributing in a community. I was just wondering like what made you think of that? How did you go about that? And yeah, just like elaborate that from your perspective, because I think a lot of people sometimes are looking for roles and they're not looking for how they can contribute first because most of these high level people are looking for contributors and you took that route. So how did you think of that coming from an employee standpoint where usually you work to get a paycheck, you don't work to contribute?
Great question. And a lot of that I owe to my YouTube mentors. So prior to
Sure.
meeting Mason, I was just drinking as much of the Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins Kool-Aid, so to speak. And ultimately, what I learned was service first. And I started to apply that at UPS. Granted, there was constraints, red tape, all that stuff. And that's a story for another day. But ultimately, I just see people in the community that needed help. And I had been through all of the training. And so I was just answering questions, jumping on calls here and there, supporting people. And I just really had like this deep like thirst to give value to people. And the company was growing, and my account manager, I could tell he was a little overwhelmed just from his response time. And I was like, well, let me just jump in and like I know the answers, I'll help them. And so it really was just like, let me serve as much as possible. And the quote that comes to mind is like Les Brown is just always add more value than you get paid for. And I was like, what happens if I apply this in a community of people who are all trying to grow and who all are going to resonate with that? And it basically created a position for me.
Nice, man. And just curious, like where were they hosting that community?
This was originally, you guys might not be familiar with it, but Facebook has something called Workplace. I don't know if it's even still around.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Um,
The ancient,
Yeah.
ancient
yep.
days.
So it can be in places like a Facebook group, a school group, a Kajabi group. It could be in any of those
Any
technically, really.
community.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, nice.
Sweet, man.
Sweet. Well, I did pull down your screen, but feel free to pull it back up so we can dive right in. Just wanted to be able to see everyone when we were chatting.
No worries. Let's do it. I am stoked to share this with you guys, and I might have more training in here than we have time for, and it's totally fine if we don't get through everything. I'm happy to give this to Mason so you guys can kind of walk through it on your own outside of the call. But just to kind of set the frame, like I truly, truly believe, and this is what I learned from the call with Mason and my own experiences and all the things, is that there is no better vehicle for growth in life than sales. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. But ultimately, it boils down to the quote in there is like, you can't enroll someone into the vision, their purpose without living in yours, or at least working towards it. Right. So let's say you want to learn how to become a millionaire, right? You probably would not take advice from your friend who makes minimum wage and is in debt, right? because he's not walking the walk. And I think sales is like, it's just such a powerful vehicle for growth, right? And that's where Mason enrolled me from. Like the note I have here is I was really thinking like, what was the feeling that I wanted? Like what truly pulled me in and said yes and made me go and get 4 credit cards and make the investment for Thought Leader originally. It was the courage. It was like Mason was able to pull out the part of me that was courageous enough to just go for it. Even like I knew I was going to fail. I knew it was going to take time. It took me a year and a half to land my TEDx talk. And in that process, the amount of growth, the person I became was far more valuable than the sales I made. Right. So what I want to share with you guys is just like the two most basic things I've come up with and learned from working with 100+ reps, probably 30 SDRs, and just being humble and asking them what works and applying it. And the first thing we'll talk about is a fun little acronym. It's called PEP, right? So you want to get some pep in your step before you actually start to do anything sales related, in my opinion. And we can talk about the first thing. And again, if you guys have questions, please stop me, right? And so PEP stands for 3 things: preparation, execution, and play, right? So we'll talk about preparation first. And preparation is super simple. All of this is going to be really simple because I love simplicity. And so preparation just means getting all the things done that are, if you study Jim Rohn at all, you guys probably know this, minor time: answering emails, answering Slack messages, texting people, confirming your calls, all the things that are not in the presence of, right? Now, the biggest piece of preparation that I think leans into kind of the general intention for this call is like that spiritual, physical, just growth as a person, is getting yourself primed, right? So for me, I love 3 things in the morning. I typically do breath work. That's going to get me physically in my body so that when I'm on a call, I'm not in my head. Second thing is physical, right? So for me, I do the gym after work, but it bleeds over. So maybe you do a walk in the morning, right? Something to get you in the body. And then emotional, which for me is meditation and just getting close to source, mystery, spirit, God, whatever name you find most appealing, right? But what that does is it aligns your body. You're preparing yourself to just be totally present on the call. Good example of that is I've caught myself 3 times getting in my head. One of them was, dang, I'm cold in this. It's really cold here, -6 degrees. Or, man, Mason's like, I love Mason. He's talking me up. The practices that I have pull me back into the body so that I can be totally present with you guys, right? And we'll talk about why that's important towards the end of the call. And like I mentioned here, you're freeing up the energy, right, to actually be present on calls. You're not thinking on a call, man, I got to answer that message, or I forgot to reply to that email. Like you're just totally present. Super simple, but really, really important. And then what that allows is so you can execute. That's the second part of PEP, execution. This is major time. This is the 20% of your activities that actually produce most of the results, right? So if you're a setter, that's being on the phone with someone and qualifying them, being present, adding value. If you're a closer, that's same thing, being so present that when they say that one thing that's going to allow you to dig deep into pain and create a big, massive gap, like Mason did for me, you can actually hear that, right? And you're not thinking about the email you didn't answer, right? So like I mentioned, time in front of prospects, whether that's on the phone, on a sales call, whatever, right? Really simple, not too much to dive into there. The biggest thing to remember is nothing else is major time there. Don't confuse yourself or like lull yourself into thinking anything but being on the phone or being in front of someone on a sales call, an enrollment call is major time. And then the third thing in PEP, right, is play, right? Because we all do this job. Maybe you just really love enrolling people and it fulfills you completely. Most people, though, that's not the case, right? For me personally, I love salsa, ballroom dancing. I love the gym and I love traveling, all these things we could go into. And if I don't execute and I don't prepare, I'm not going to have the space to play because I'm going to be looking for a job, right? And ultimately, we all work so that we can have these things. Tangible examples, eventually, I will have a certain amount saved up in a BTSX, whatever stocks, so that I can live off that income, right? And then my whole life will be play. So having that thing that charges you up. For me, the main one is the gym, which is why I go at night, because then I can just be at the gym and it fully recharges me. So have play, right? I can tell you this from experience. All of the SDRs who don't make it, most of them don't have play. All they're focused on is a role, right? All they're focused on is making dials for 12 hours a day. And you will get production that way. And it's the quickest way to burn yourself out is to have nothing in your free time that you actually love, that actually recharges you, right? Any questions there? Anything you guys want to add?
No, I mean, yes. Yeah, I mean, yes, there's plenty of we want to add, I'm sure. What questions do you guys have and what thoughts is how I'd ask that. What questions and thoughts do you guys have?
When you like how do you know you're not overplaying or underplaying for maximum production?
Great question. And that's going to be really specific to you, right? And what you feel is balance for you. Like most of us aren't David Goggins. Play for him is a 200-mile run.
And most of us aren't Alex Ramosi either, who's actually miserable with his life after he got interviewed by the master Tony Robbins. But
Hmm.
for you, like how are you personally like regulating that as an example?
Yeah, so just experience. And a tangible example is I was working with a coach that I'm in a course with right now and starting to close for him, taking calls. And I would do that after my SDR role. And then I would go to the gym and I like this might seem like you're BSing here, but I literally started getting double vision at night. I went and bought a pair of glasses. I got three different exams because it wasn't working. And then finally I was like, okay, let me just try to slow down. And within a week, my vision was fine.
Mm,
Right. And so it was a little bit of an expensive lesson on how much is too much for me as far as work. Now, as far as play, it's just an intuitive feeling for me. Like I just took a 3-day vacation for my birthday with my partner, and by probably Saturday morning, I was starting to feel the urge, like, okay, I'm recharged. I want to go and be productive. I want to execute.
So it's almost like that you almost feel motivated to get back. In other words, like you step away and then your body and your mind kind of crave that scenario again.
hmm.
Exactly. And it's the
Gotcha.
same with play, right? When you can tell, like, man, I just don't even want to get on another call. I just
Yeah.
don't have the energy to be present. You need rest, or you need the gym, or you need whatever that play is for you. Maybe it's video games. It's really personal what play is. Like play for me is I loved that podcast with Alex and Tony. Man, it filled me up. It was juicy, right? So it's gonna be different for everybody. I
I,
also love watching The Witcher.
yeah, I haven't gotten through the whole thing yet. But I saw the first part of it and I was like, wow, okay. Like you could see the dynamic and what was going on. And I was like, very, very, very fucking interesting. I always thought that was going on with that guy, Alex, but
Yeah.
never actually saw it come out like as, yeah, like
Yeah.
doesn't have that same kind of passion or whatever that Tony has. So yeah, super interesting. So I want to make sure I don't end up like Alex, so. Which I don't think will
You're
happen, you know?
I totally agree. That was really eye-opening for me to watch that too. Is like,
Mhm.
and I'll give you this example. The first month I hit over 10K, I made like $11,240. Jacked, stoked. I think me and Mason even chatted about it. And the next day when the month reset, I didn't wake up excited to make 10 grand again. And it made me really pause. I was like, okay, what's going on here? Like I've worked towards this for an entire year and some change. I finally hit it. Where's the thing, the jewel, the prize?
Yeah.
And that's when ultimately I learned, okay, money is a facilitation for the play, the service. It lets you expand your impact, but if you're not impacting the way you want to, it's not really going to help you outside of the tangible things.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you're not actually living the life you want to live while building it. I mean, some people are willing to sacrifice that to get to some end goal, but I think there's like a new generation coming through here that wants to enjoy the process as well
Mm-hmm.
and actually enjoy the journey of building something rather than just like, one day I'll be happy. I'm we're reading Atomic Habits right now on our sales team, and it talks about the basically if you're waiting for anything to occur in the external to experience joy and happiness, it's kind of a trap. Like
Yep.
once X happens or once Y happens, once Z happens, then I can be like stoked and happy. Like that's uh it's kind of a I don't want to say a broken way of living, but it's a really difficult
Hmm.
way to live. So I really resonate with that. And then I also believe that one in three are deeply connected outside of just sales. So preparation in terms of like, every morning I'm running through the same habits right now with breath work, like you with meditation. I'm literally checking those boxes off in my Notion. I have a habit tracker. I'm hitting my supplements, hitting my morning walk, like I'm doing all of those things. Also preparing for play, meaning if you don't actually book it out, it doesn't fucking happen.
Yep.
Like when I plan my weeks, usually the first thing I plan is the fun stuff. So like on Sundays, like when I sit down and like plan, I'm like, yo, what's gonna be freaking sick this week? Like that's the dinners that I host. That's the dinners I go to. That's the different mastermind events. And then also like this week I decided I want to try something different, which is acro yoga. So I like started stalking Instagram, found a dude in San Diego, hit him up, got him on a FaceTime, and then found out his hourly rate for one-to-one, which was like only $80 an hour. I was like, hell yeah, that's cheap. And he's got like a workshop this weekend. And then last night I went out to an event and met a woman who is a world record holder for Ironman. And I just invited her out to that. And she was like, hell yeah, I'm going. So when you guys like get intentional with prepping for play, then when opportunities come and you have events like this, you also have things to enroll people into. So for social life, the preparation, this ties into sales and social life and everything really. If you're not thinking ahead, you're just like setting yourself up to fail.
Hmm. If you're not planning, you are planning to fail.
It's like so cheesy, but so
Yeah.
and so true. Dan, good to see you, man.
We get someone else. See
Yeah,
if I
Dan just
can
came
make
in
it
a
a
couple
little
minutes
bigger
ago.
here.
So
Hey,
just
what's up, guys? Great to be here. Thanks for putting this on, Mason.
yeah, 100% man. Um, Bradley, in terms of like your daily prep, like what do you feel is like the number one needle mover that keeps you the most grounded? Is it breath work? Is it just being consistent with these practices? Like what actually keeps you most fresh and most stoked to continue to be consistent with your execution?
Yes, great question. I was thinking about this earlier. This is actually newer for me, but I found that what gets me fully ready is having I got this from Jeff Bezos. He calls it putter time, right? But what I really love is just having like an hour of buffer before, let's say I have 2 hours of task before I start calls with preparation, breath work, all of it. I like to add an hour, because then I can putter. And that for me is, I think it's specific, but it gives me a lot of space,
Mm,
right? So if I want to take extra 5 minutes and make the coffee or walk out back with the dog while he's outside, it just gives me that like energetic mental space where I don't have to rush.
yeah, I hate rushing. Who else is used to be addicted to rushing or is currently maybe kind of hooked on rushing? Like it's just in that? No, no one else is like in a rushing mentality. I'm glad. I was for a long time. The first 4 years of sales, I was just like always rushing.
Mhm.
Wake up straight to the first sales call, slam coffee, no breakfast, no morning walk, no nothing, just
Yes.
straight to it.
I used to roll out of bed 5 minutes before my first call. And I had some great months where I did that. And ultimately, it was because of this. I had preparation and play, and the preparation, I had a lot of nighttime preparation. So it can look really different for everyone. You don't have to spend 2 hours getting ready in the morning. Maybe you just roll out of bed and that works for you. It's going to be really specific to you as a person.
Yeah. I think it's anytime we're in that rushed energy, just realizing that that was like our own fault. Like
Exactly.
something that we set up or something that we agreed to that put us in that position. Like for me, in terms of values currently, it's like peace, profitability, sustainability in that order. If the peace is compromised in any working agreement for a sustained period of time, I'm out. Like I don't have
Hmm.
tolerance for it. It's just not worth it for me. I want like
Yes.
to be able to operate from a relaxed place during work is like a non-negotiable for me at this point. So um, I think some of us are taught that we have to be stressed to win, or we believe, or we're conditioned to believe that we need to be stressed in a high stress state to actually be winning and growing, which I think we need to push ourselves, but I don't think that also means we need to be burnt out and totally anxious and rushing and like incoherent at the same time. So nice, man. I really appreciate you putting this on. Anything else that you want to share specifically, or any key points on the play side, execution, or preparation that you'd want to dive into further?
And unless anyone has questions, I think I'm a huge fan of keeping it maximally simple.
Sweet.
Good example of that is August last year, I did 349,000 in SDR revenue. And that was a month where I was working maybe 6 hours a day, and I had to call at 10. I was probably getting up at 9, just enough time to get something, coffee, whatever. And ultimately, you can balance this however you want. So most of my play would come after work, but I would get done at 4 o'clock and I'd have, 30K revenue every day. So it didn't necessarily, um, like you can balance it however you want. It's not a static, you have to do this XYZ to prep.
Yeah. I think you did a really good job of that because there's a lot of pressure externally. Like we're all pack animals, and when we see people operate a certain way, we want to operate the way they operate. So like when I was at seventh level, I wanted to play their
Mhm.
game even though that was against my values. Their game is 7 days a
Yes.
week, 10, 12 calls a day. But when I actually look at the stats, and I love that you did that too, like the most productive I ever was as a sales rep was working at the same company he was at, working 4 days a week and fucking off Friday through Thursday, and then just going to the mountains and being completely
Yes.
off my phone, and then just dominate for 4 days, sort of thing. So I don't think there's one right way to do it. It just comes down to results ultimately.
Yes. And the second half of what I have prepared will give a big insight into why that's the case if
Yeah.
we
Is there
have
a
time
second
for
piece
it.
to that? Did you want to dive further in? Let's do
Yeah,
it.
prep was just a warm up, man. The real
Oh,
juice is
heck
coming.
yeah, baby. Hit us with it with the juice. Drop a one in the chat if you're freaking stoked on this. Get some juice. Get some love for our boy Bradley. Let's get some ones. Little
Oh, the
engagement. Wake us
wands.
up. Oh
I
yeah,
feel
baby.
seen. Thank you, gentlemen.
Got you, bro.
Okay. So I think this will be where most of the questions will come in, and we're going to keep this simple as well. But this is truly actually, did you ever meet Nicholas Tanabe? Were
Yeah.
you there when he was there? He actually sent me the initial starting point to this, which I think is like the holy grail, especially for setters. And it deeply applies to closers as well. And this kind of ties into all the energetic and all the things that kind of sound a little woo-woo, right? If that's not your cup of tea, we can ground that here. So in any sales role, what I've discovered is that there's three levels of competency essentially, right? And so the first one is inputs. And like I laughed because we're actually working with a consultant from seventh level who is awesome. But I asked him what his numbers were, and he's like, "Oh, we did 400 dials a day, 6 sets minimum." And I'm like, instantly, I'm not doing that, right? Because I've tried it. It doesn't work, and it exhausts you. And maybe their offer is different. Maybe it works. I don't know, right? But what that is you're in a do have be. If I do enough dials, I'm going to have the sets, and then I can be the setter who makes 10K a month, right? And that is the ultimate recipe for exhaustion. Like you were saying, 12 calls a day, like that's insane. I can't even imagine living that lifestyle. Right. And we can just go through the bullet points. Please, again, stop me if you have questions here. But I try to keep this as simple as possible too. So inputs is just simply raw work. I always like to lean into the Midwest factory worker mindset because that's where I started my career with my dad as a maintenance man. And it was just like, you do the work and you're happy about it. Right. But you're just doing it. It's brute force. Right. And so if you try to hammer a nail into a knot, if you guys have ever hammered a nail, I'm sure you've worked with something in that something where you're forcing it, right? It's really tiring. Or if you have the wrong tool, right? If you're trying to shovel snow with a cardboard box, like I had to do because the shovel was not in my house, I was like, man, this sucks, and I went and got a shovel. Um, and there's a lot of success to be had in doing. To be honest, it does work. Our boy Alex Ramosi, one of my favorite quotes, Ian, that I learned from his, you just do so much work that it's impossible for you to not win. And that's how I started my SDR career. There was nights where I would be literally in my underwear, sweating at 200 dials, tons of connections, and just trying to get as much reps in as possible so I could be successful.
Did you not have AC? Like, why were you in underwear, dude? I just need to know.
I was just working that hard, man. I mean, I had
You
AC,
just
but it
wanted to
was
be
just like
lightweight, like aerodynamic or something,
I was just doing whatever I could to just stay locked in.
so we could
Like,
dial
just
faster.
taking
Okay.
clothes of
Whatever it
taking
takes,
articles of clothing off. And
legend.
I'll never forget that night. That's when I realized, like, okay, inputs will only take you so far. I was quite literally burning myself out, like overheating my body in my head. I was completely exhausted and it wasn't working. But it's an ultimate foundation to fall on, right? If things aren't working, just do more inputs. It will absolutely work.
Mm,
And ultimately, you want to move past that to the second layer, which is skill set, right? Now we're in more of a have, do, be mindset, right? I have the skills to do less inputs and maximize the people on the calls, right? So maybe if you're closing at a 20%, this is now you're closing at a 40%. So you can take 10 calls and close four of them instead of taking 20 calls and closing four of them because you've mastered some skills, right? So like it says here, using your inputs to master major time. So when you're in the presence of someone, not how to write a better email copy to confirm someone, that stuff's important. But when you're in front of someone, what are the skills that you have to maximize each input? Best way to do that I've learned, is you just pick one thing. I really suck at handling this objection. I really suck at letting people ramble on my SDR calls, and my calls go to 30 minutes. How do I fix that? Okay, I'm going to ask someone who has that skill already, right? And it can be counterintuitive because if you've guys been in the industry, like I've had SDRs come in and I'm like, hey, built the script over 2 years. It's got 40 different people's ideas in it. It works 99% of the time. And they'll just do their own thing anyways, because that's just how humans work, right? We want to try things and be creative. And the best way is just to ask someone who has the result. So I would go to a rep and say, hey, people are no showing me. What can I do to get them to show up? They'd listen to my call and they'd say, do this. I'd implement it. It would work or it wouldn't. Right. But I was doing that every single day, almost every hour. That's where I experienced the most growth in skill set. I would go to someone, hey, how'd you close that deal? How'd you get more sets to me this week? Right. Even if it was something simple, like, oh, I just made five more dials at this time, I would try it. If it worked, I would keep it. The way you do that, though, is you turn your brain off. Right. If someone has the results you want, and this is kind of something I learned from Tony Robbins, you just do what they tell you to do, and you turn this thing off and let your ego step aside.
mm,
It will most likely work better than what you're trying, right? So a big thing for me was tonality. I was constantly seeking rapport, and everything I said would end like this, right? And someone told me, hey, this is actually Zach. I know you remember Zach. He's like, and he taught me rapport. You've got rapport seeking, which is like, I really want you guys to like this training. Do you guys like it? Right? Which is ultimately you're trying to like get validation and all these like inner things that we don't have time to go into. Right. So I fixed that. And instead, now I use neutral tonality. I keep the same tone every time. Right. You might see people who go in down in tonality, which is, I think I'm better than you. Right. You just want neutral tonality. So I implemented it and it worked. I said, I post a note on my computer and I said neutral tonality and I practiced it for a week. Same thing with asking the right questions. Right. We don't have to go into examples, but essentially you learn what questions work better. Right. So instead of asking the same question that falls flat, you just implement it.
okay.
Implement a different question. Right.
One quick note, Bradley. One thing I really liked about what you said in this is just that like each week when you saw reps doing better than you or people doing better than you were like proactively reaching out to them to figure out what they're doing and
That
what.
is truly the biggest secret of my success as an SDR.
So I think that's a really good example of like resourcefulness, right? Like we can either look for more resources or maximize the resources in front of us. And a lot of people are trapped in just trying to look for more resources rather than maximizing and implementing what's already in front of them. And it's just like a really vicious cycle that gives you like a dopamine
Mhm.
hit and a feeling of progress when really you're not. Um, so for any, it's just a reminder for all of us, whether you're a rep, whether you're an offer owner, whatever it is that you do, it's like maximizing what's in front of you is usually the best strategy to get more. Like maximize it, done is better than perfect, and then iterate rather than just trying to
Mhm.
outsource all of that. So that's solid.
Yes. And one of my favorite quotes is I don't remember the quote exactly, but essentially like when you set a goal, you just go for that goal until you hit it. Because there's always going to be shiny things to the left and the right as you're taking that path. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that. It's like you just do the thing until you get the result. It might take you 10 years, but if your goal is big enough, it'll be worth it. Right. So like it says here, do the thing, fail, ask questions, mentors, trainers. You got Mason, right, who's an absolute dog at, and not just closing people, but he literally enrolled me into the vision of what I could create with my life. Right. And I think that's the difference between a closer who's trying to collect cash and a life changer who's trying to pull someone deeper into their purpose. And so the biggest thing in skill set, the biggest tip that I can give you is speed to implementation. The second you get something from someone that you trust, implement it.
Yeah.
Right. And this puts you in a place where you have the skills that you need to do the thing so that you can become the thing. And in my cheeky little right, there's a level beyond that. Right. And this is where we get into how are you waking up 5 minutes before your call and doing a $359,000, I think it's $349,000 month as an SDR revenue wise. It's because I moved into the energetic place, right? And that's where we get into like the mystery and all the spiritual things that we don't really have to dive into. But essentially, you already are the thing, right? And so this is still true to this day. I just one day woke up and I'm like, I am the best SDR. I'm going to be the best SDR in the world, right? I don't know if it will happen. It just in my mind, I already was that thing. And so I didn't have to do it anymore. I just was it, right? And I already had the results because I was already the thing, right? I was the top closer at your company, or I literally was numbers wise the best SDR. And I was doing the least amount of work because do comes last when you're in the energetic phase. And this is our third tier, like the third competency level as a closer, an SDR, or really anything in life is you manage your energy. It's the most important piece, right? Because I think we've all had a day where your energy's off. And this has been shown to me over and over again through the people I connect with on the phone. If I'm having an energetically off day, I will get people who are homeless and living in their truck and want to talk about spaceships and
He's,
like just completely unaligned.
he's not kidding. Like the people that the spectrum that a TEDx talk attracts is like conspiracy theorists and CEOs of Fortune 500
Literally.
companies. You know, you got like the full freaking range on that offer. So you better make sure your energy is right. So you're not talking to people who are telling you that they've figured out perpetual energy and like that they're smoking a cig while doing it. So, um,
Yes, yes. Oh, so many fun examples we could talk about. Um, I'll hold back because these are funny, but this I know to be true because 9 out of 10 Fridays of my week, I get the last call of my day is just some totally aligned, like freakishly close to the things I care about, best conversation of the week, right? There's a reason for that. It's because it's Friday and I'm getting ready to go into the weekend and I have, all my play lined up and I'm excited. My energy is really high, right? So I'm attracting that same thing, whether you believe in all that stuff or not. Just trust me on this. That's the whole reason I do the prep to keep physically, mentally, and spiritually aligned so that I attract those people too. Because I don't want people who are unaligned, right? I don't want them on the phone because we can't help them. They're not ready for that. And so balancing your energy is a huge piece. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but if you guys are familiar with David Hawkins, this has been like the guidepost of my life, right? Um, Highly recommend check out his book, Letting Go. We don't have to spend time in this, but this is essentially the different energetic levels that you can be in, right? So when Mason's talking about peace is my first priority, right? There's a reason. It's because peace, unless you're Jesus or Buddha and you can get to enlightenment, which I haven't been able to do yet, go for it if you can. But peace is this place where you're just resonating, like I'm okay, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm grateful. And it's not going to matter how many sets you get in a day if this is your state of being, right? Now, if you're down here in shame and guilt because you can't close, and then you start to get apathetic because no one's coming on the phone and they're all broke and blah, 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 all the classic things that we go through when we're in a down slump, which is totally real. right? That's what you're going to attract. So definitely check him out. I don't want to spend too much time on that because I want some Q&A time, right? But ultimately, what we're talking about when we're saying be, have, do versus do, have, be is detachment versus attune, or excuse me, detachment versus attachment, right? We've all been on a call, and I still do this to this day. It's why it's a daily practice. When someone says, "Yeah, I make $250,000," your brain instantly says, "Set this person. This is the close," right? And they might not even be the right fit because you might be attached, right? Which is in do. I need to do more dials because I'm attached to having the results so that I can be the thing, right? The opposite of that is detachment. I don't care who I connect with today because I know in my soul I could be on the side of the street shivering in the cold in Dayton, Ohio right now because we've got 2 feet of snow and I can find a place of peace in me. It's a completely different energy, right? One of my favorite examples is like the sun is completely detached. Anyone can have the light of the sun, and that's why it has such gravity, right? You naturally attract people into your orbit when you're detached, right? The moon, for example, is totally attached to the Earth. Without the Earth, it's just going to wander off into space, and it doesn't have the same pull. It's got a little bit of gravity, but not a ton, right? And I'll give you guys this example, and then we can run through some of this stuff if you guys have questions about it. Um, I love dating as a parallel to sales, and you've probably all experienced this where maybe someone's interested in you and you're starting to like court them or whatever, or let's just say someone approaches you at a bar and they're like, "Oh, Mason, you're really cute. Can I have your number? Oh, I'd love to take you out. Oh, man, you're just gorgeous. You're awesome." And they're just flooding you with all these attached emotions. What is your natural response? Get the frig away from me. No, I'm not dating you, right? Alternatively, if a really grounded, your type of woman approaches you and she's like, "Hey, I just wanted to say I think you're handsome and I'd like to get to know you. I have a couple times this week that we could meet up. Let me know if one of those works." Completely detached. It's a completely different energy, right? And it attracts you in versus, right, if you go up to a woman in the bar and you're like, "You're so beautiful and hot and I just want to date you right now." She's gonna she's gonna run away from you because you have this pushing energy.
Mm. Hmm.
Um, yeah, I love the dating metaphor. I'll talk about it all day, but we've got 10 minutes left. We've covered a ton of stuff.
Nice.
I'll stop sharing here and we can do some Q&A. Hopefully this was valuable to you guys.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys got some nuggets of wisdom, let's just drop a one in the chat. I know I got some good reminders in there. Get some love for Mr. Moore, Mr. Bradley. Definitely appreciate you coming in and sharing all this. It's a good reminder. I know with dating and with sales, it's kind of like a dog. If you chase the dog, what happens? Motherfucker
Oh, yes.
runs, dude. But if you flip the frame on him and you run away, who's chasing who now? Now he's excited. And the second you take away, that dog's like, you're flipping the frame on him. So I would definitely agree with that. And maybe sometime I'll do a DM sales training because those principles apply deeply to DM sales for flirting and
Hmm.
for DM setting prospects as well.
Yeah, I love how it's the same thing. When I started doing Hinge, this was when I was an SDR. I was like, this is literally SDR work.
Yeah, dude.
It's totally the same.
Yeah, Andrew Cruzy and I have a side group on WhatsApp where we actually analyze dating chats. So if any of you guys are curious about that, hit me up on school. It's fun. So we're just like dropping DM sets in there and like screen recordings. But that's a total tangent. Let's come back to what's top of mind is setting the 3 levels of basically ascension there that Bradley went through. What questions do you guys have? Questions, thoughts?
I have a question, Bradley. Do you think that, like you talked about those 3 phases, right? Do you think you can kind of jump straight to that energetic phase you were talking about, where like you're just kind of almost faking it until you make it, right? Like you're just in the mode, you believe it's your identity, you are that kind of person, and then you can do the actions. Or do you think you have to go through the first 2 phases first?
I think you're totally right. And a perfect example of that is our SDR team is now grown. I don't know if you know Mason, we're like 18 people. And
Yeah.
there are a couple of ladies their energy is just so kind and service based and giving. And between you and I, their skills are not that great. They're not asking like super fire questions. They're not building a massive gap, and they're closing, we call them whales, which I'm sure you all recognize the whale terms. They're like 30, $40,000 deals. So I'm listening to these calls and they're just energetically in the, like literally the act of service, right? Their questions are simple. And that's something that they've learned being on this team. And they deem me like, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, just fix your energy and just serve the people on the call, right? So you can really take any approach. I think it's harder to go straight into the energetic portion because you need support for that because it's really easy to doubt yourself. So both have validity. I think it is important to know how to do inputs though, or
Yeah.
and have a good skill set because we all know sometimes the leads just aren't great and you need to hammer the phones. Sometimes, they're just not qualified. So you need to be able to dive into finances and see if they have a good credit score. That takes a really deep level of skill set. But yes, you can definitely jump levels.
Yeah, and attack it from different angles. I think I was more of the inputs and skill set at first. It took a while for me to shift into that. At some point, there was like once you get into flow and you're getting into momentum, then I was able to like reduce calls and actually make more.
100%.
So depending on where you're at in the journey, like if I was in Marcus's spot right now, I would be on skills and input, and yes, working on my being, but the short-term wins would be in the skills and input, and then long-term building up my habits to figure out how I can increase my energy and how I show up and just be more detached.
Yep.
Because that's something
Yep.
that compounds over the long term as you start to like I think it's a couple of things. I think as you actually manage your money more and you start to invest and save and actually build a buffer, and then as you start to experience more wins and stack evidence for yourself, your belief increases, your being increases, and at some point, like you just really don't give a fuck if it closes or not,
Hmm.
because like it doesn't actually make an impact on your day to day anymore.
Yep.
Like the outcome does not change what I'm doing later today or even how the rest of this month or the rest of this quarter. Like you are detached, but you become detached, and it can be hard to fake that at first.
Yep.
Yeah.
It definitely
Like,
can, it can be hard to fake that one.
yeah. When I was closing, like on my last offer, I think,
Hmm.
I remember like I wasn't making a lot of money, right? A lot of the leads were very low quality. Like it was hard, right? So I kind of had to be faking it, like in order to get myself in that energetic state, because the only time I closed people was when I was there.
Mm.
Like maybe there were a couple laydowns, but most of the time, like I remember, like I was always chasing the inputs. I was always trying to get the new word tracks and trying to improve my skill, right? Getting call reviews. But it was only like when I was actually in that state and I was super, super present that I would just have like back-to-back closes.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's such an important piece is the presence. I actually learned, we talked about this at the very beginning. If you guys missed it, I was closing for a guy I'm coaching with now, and he had a frame to start the call. He had a like cover his course, like a course outline, and then a little bit around finances and like the actual financial objections. All of the middle of the call was pure presence. There was no script. And he's one of my favorite coaches ever because he thrives in the energetic space. And he comes from a place of like performance. So sometimes you just got to perform, to be honest, until you get the belief, like Mason was saying. And that's going to come from inputs and skill set. And then eventually you'll have this shift where you just know, like my script was so dialed in and still is. The 99% of the people I get on, if they're qualified, they're getting set. It's just not even a question anymore. I don't have any doubts about it. Right. I am that thing now that just puts people on calls.
Yeah.
Takes time though, unless you're just like Joe Dispenza and you go into the quantum and just recreate your reality instantly, which is pretty difficult to
Can
do
you do
from my
that? Can you put on the
experience.
training next week, Marcus?
Literally.
That would be incredible. Yeah. That's why I've been so hard on the habits recently is because like each habit like reinforces a belief and that's reinforcing an
Hmm.
identity that you're actively creating, which just all of that compounds over time into how you show up, which one makes it more fun, two makes it more effective, and three, I'd say less draining. So that's always beautiful. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Bradley's had a really incredible journey. It's cool to see how he's developed from, you know, making the leap, investing in that program. And like he said, he pulled out like 4 credit cards. We 0%. I don't even think they were 0% interest. I think they were high
No.
interest.
Upstart. The Upstart ones were good cards.
We got
That
him
was
all the
that was
cards.
your that was the
Uh,
classic for the company for a while. Those are great cards, honestly.
I sent him all the links to apply for all the credit cards, and here we are for 4 or 5 years later, 5 years later. So time flies, and it's a reminder also that you guys are actually opening doors. When you sell good programs, you're giving people a chance. It's still up to them what they do with it, and nothing's guaranteed.
Right.
But you are giving them an opportunity to make a serious change in their life. So hope you
Exactly.
guys found that helpful. And anything you want to leave us with, Bradley, before we kind of wrap?
I'm just so grateful, man. I mean, uh, you're such a unique closer in the fact that you would check in with me. I remember in college, and I was trying to make everything work. I want to blah blah blah, all the things. And he called me once, and we were just chatting. And he had closed me, and we were talking about a girl I was dating or something. And he was just totally down to just dive in. And sorry to hear the dogs, guys, but that's the kind of closer you want to be, is someone who enrolls someone into the vision of their life. You don't have to follow up with every prospect, but just have so much gratitude for you, Mason. And dude, congrats to what you're building. Like watching you continue to grow is continuing to inspire me to do the same. And dude, you're my OG first mentor ever. So
Got you, dude. It was really cool to have you in here. And you did the work, my man. You did the work. So onwards and upwards, leading 18 SDRs and helping support that and being the one who's really been the OG, that's a big deal. That's a lot of leadership. So congrats on that front, guys. Are you guys hiring?
we're always hiring sales reps and SDRs. There's always a churn.
Yeah. Do you want to drop the hiring link? If you put a post in the community after on school that basically has like your Google Doc, if you could put that, and then in the
Yeah.
comments, just put if they're hiring, that'll be there. The recording is being recorded here locally because I didn't want the fathoms in it. And then once that processes, it'll get posted in Zoom for me, or sorry, in school a little bit later, and I'll put it on my YouTube as well. So all the notes will be there. But awesome, guys. Let's freaking crush it this week. Appreciate you carving out an hour, man. That was our first expert session inside of Remote Sales Secrets. So that was a
Ooh,
banger and one of many more to come. So we'll see you guys next week and appreciate all of you for hopping on. Peace. Let's see.
see you, Mason. Great to meet
Later.
all you guys.
See you guys.